Boom! Salutations. It's been a minute. I want to give a shout out to all my people on Patreon. Thank you for your support, or I would not be here. God bless you. Wanted to talk about something little different today. And this is, for this one, I'm going to actually read down my notes. What this involves is the Earthfiles broadcast from 3/8/23. Okay? 3/8/23. And what this was during this broadcast, Linda Moulton Howe, who I have a lot of respect for, and it was a pleasure meeting her and everything, tried to reach out to her for a few times with little response, and that's all right. But, she's really into the tall whites, and that's something that just goes down all the time, and there's never, ever melanin-dominant extraterrestrials addressed at all, which is all right, but this time, I think it's worthy talking about, all right? During this broadcast, all right, on, was that March 8th, 23, she talked about an interview that she did with a gentleman named William Mills Tompkins, and he's a retired aerospace designer whistleblower. And this one, one reason I'm going to read this down to you is because I want to make sure I address the points during his interview that really kind of touched me, all right? And one is he wrote this book called, wrote these books called Selected by Extraterrestrials, Volumes 1 to 3. And he talked about these different phases and the secret space program and what that really is from his knowledge. All right, and the first thing would be that he described 3 phases. Phase 1 is 10,000 naval research facilities on the moon. All right, it was part of the Apollo program. Phase 2 was the Navy to establish stations on all habitable planets in this solar system. I found that one very interesting. And knowing with what we've gone over now, with what the dwarf planets, the trans-Neptunian objects outside of Pluto, what I've been saying about the bases there, and I had Jessica Jones remote view that as a blind target, those of you that watched that. And that's definitely something happening out there. But this is a little different if this is human construction, is what he's saying. Phase 3, this one really interested me. Go to the 12 nearest stars and build naval stations on the habitable planets. In those 12 systems, Alpha Centauri being the closest was the one that they're going to try to colonize first. Now, he said it didn't work because of the radiation that's on Alpha Centauri, and that created a problem for them creating those bases there. Now, interestingly enough, taking that and kind of referencing that a little bit more with these Dr. Delbert Blair, okay? Dr. Delbert Blair had mentioned that when he went to a convention over the George Minsky contacts, that he was approached by 2 melanin-dominant gentlemen from Alpha Centauri, and that they talked to him telepathically, and they were at this conference. And the majority, there are a lot of melanin-dominant extraterrestrials at Alpha Centauri, and that's what's going on there. Now, at least on one of these planets, I think there might be 2 that are in the habitable zone. But anyway, has that got something more to do with why the Navy's not going out there, or these Earth secret space programs are not going out there? Just, food for thought again. But I thought I'd throw Dr. Blair in there, as I have so much respect for his work and as a contactee. Most important to me that what Tompkins said is that he kept saying, he goes, there are not just dozens of species coming here. As I was saying, they're not just, he had mentioned, and this is important, he said that there weren't just dozens of species coming here, or hundreds, he said even thousands. And that, boom, that's much more on point, all right? And that's when looking at what, just Hubble is saying now, and what the new James Webb telescope is saying, the amount of galaxies that we have in this universe is now in the trillions. So to think that there's not, with quantum entanglement and things like that, we don't have so many different species coming here. That's what's real, and that's where I stand in this, because the beings and this extragalactic, interdimensional cooperative alliance that I told you that I've been dealing with my whole life, these different beings from different universes, some of them, all right, that is very much a reality, but that's what we're dealing with here. And they weren't the standard contacts that I see so much talked in the media. The Greys, the Reptilians, these tall whites, any of these things. All right, these beings are presented to you. The insectoid is different. Mana is different. This brain coral type of being. And a lot of these entities were different. I couldn't find a frame of reference when looking into social media. So him saying that means a lot. We've got a lot going on here. This is some sort of laboratory. It's always been that way. And you do have hundreds or perhaps thousands of species coming here, all these different alliances. And he had mentioned this alliance, that these certain races that do this monitor. And what they're monitoring especially is the deviants, but it's slavery. That so many of these lower civilizations, although they may be technologically advanced by our standards, they're lower vibrational, and they specialize in slavery. And taking this and cross-referencing this with something else. Jessica Jones, I've done several of her remote investigations show, and I give her these blind targets. And one of the blind targets I gave her was TRAPPIST-1. It's a good one too, and she knocks it out of the ballpark. I give her much credit. All right, she's a good remote viewer, and she nails a lot of these targets that are completely blind. And this TRAPPIST, what she was picking up immediately was not just a civilization, but also slavery. She kept going into that immediately. It was on her data. It's slavery. She kept seeing that, and this takes it and crosses it over into what my friend Tony Rodriguez says, who I'll be seeing at the Grafton, Illinois conference for Journey to Truth this May 21st to the 22nd to the 25th, 26th. He'll be there, and I'm going to talk to him about this too, at this TRAPPIST, how the slavery there, and not just that, but what they're saying, he says he was a slave in a system like that for this SSP and other beings, other entities, and he's very specific about what he's saying. He's got some amount of evidence to back it up. I try to use science. He's doing the same type of thing, or doing even more, going to the locations where he was and the people and all that stuff. It's really interesting. But when dealing with what he said he went through as a part of that slavery, what Jessica saw at TRAPPIST-1 and what William Mills Tompkins is saying, that's heavy, and you've got a conjunction of 3 different data sources there. That means something, all right? And I think just as for us to be aware of that's going on here, that ties into this SSP thing. When I talk about the dark net, something else I had Jessica review when she as a blind target remote viewed the dwarf planets out there, the trans-Neptunian objects, the bases on there. She was seeing this. She kept writing down scalar frequencies on there and stuff like that, and ticking time bomb. That's Earth. They're watching Earth. It's very dangerous here. So anyway, okay, going on. So I'm trying to wrap this up. He had mentioned 100 different types of humanoids coming here, perhaps. That's fascinating. That takes us beyond just the tall Nordics. That takes us into the different species. But he kept mentioning how these Nordics were trying, with Hitler, make a deal that was to populate this entire planet with blonde-haired, blue-eyed Nordics of extraterrestrial descent. And it's always talked about, I know, the Holocaust and what happened between the Jews and Hitler, but also you think that he wasn't going to exterminate black people? That's going to be the top of the line, all right? The most melanin dominant of everything. He's the one to exterminate that. See, and this we're talking about here is some type of, once again, a racial deal. And it shows it why it's so messed up down here. That stuff's being promoted. And why do we not hear so much about black extraterrestrials, melanin dominant extraterrestrials, BETs, if you want to call them that, whatever? We don't hear about it because there's a good chance a lot of them don't even want to mess with this place. Just like what was said during First Contact on Star Trek. What was about the Vulcans? Too primitive. They didn't even stop through here. If you're in light, you're going through light speed, a lot of those brothers probably don't ever drop out of light speed when they go through the solar system. They keep going. You know what I mean? So that's a problem here. Who wants to come here and deal with that? Is that why we're not seeing as many of them? It's not because they're not out there. It's because they don't want to interact with Earth as much as what this tall white regime that's trying to use genetic manipulation there. That needs to be brought up. That needs to be addressed straight up, all right? I get a little passionate about this because people don't want to address this stuff. They say, oh, the whole racial thing doesn't belong in the UFO field. Are you kidding me? Look at how skewed this stuff is. How few ethnic people are in this field still, and at these conferences, it's getting better, okay? And I applaud that, but it's still not fixed. It's a major problem here. We're not ready to advance to a Type 1 civilization. I'm talking mostly about non-humans, but I could go back because we can't even get on the table all the different beings that we're interacting with here. It's not being addressed. So that's something we'll say, and I say that now because, sorry, I'm just running a little long here, but I say this now because I've had the blessing of having a platform that has had so many different contactees talking to me that have experienced melanin-dominant extraterrestrials. Many people have talked to me, and they're definitely not all black people, all right? A lot of them are Caucasians. So, but it's not coming to the surface. We're not seeing this. It's not talked about, the different types or anything. So that's something that needs to change, all right? And what Tompkins said about thousands of different species coming here, hundreds and then thousands, boom. That's when we need to address this stuff. Real quick, the Uranta book. You know, the Uranta book calls this quadrant of space that we live in, this galaxy, the Satania, based on the whole Satan thing and, you know, that regime and that fall. And I know I saw a thing, Dolores Cannon and them saying, oh, there is no Satan, that's just something that the Romans made up, yada yada. Well, you know, that's not for me to judge because there's enough billions of year old demonic forces that that's fine for me. I don't care what the names are, all right? But I know that the regime, the Satania, what they call this is because this whole part of this galaxy is in dispute. It's in war. It seems almost like Star Wars. You got the Empire, you got the Jedis, you got the prison planet here we're on, where people's wiped clean and sent there. So anyway, these are just things I wanted to bring up, all right? Especially the racial factor that this man mentioned, okay, and how that's very prevalent right now. And I advise everybody to go listen to that Earthfiles from 3/8/23, all right, from March the 8th, 23. It's up on Linda Moulton Howe's Earthfiles system. I want to appreciate everyone who's supported me, especially my people on Patreon. Thank you. That's why these videos are coming out. They're helping me so much, so thank you. Very patient crowd they are. And also all the people that have started clicking that like button and have subscribed from, I believe it's Brother Yosef had mentioned my name, and a lot of people came over to my channel from that. Thank you for that. I have an appreciation by all means. So thank you for everybody that's starting to comment and talking amongst yourselves. I really love seeing that because that's what it's about. It's connecting the dots and making this tapestry of whatever we're going through right now, this shift in consciousness. That's what it's about. Thank you. God bless. Peace.